Taking out student loans was the single-handedly worst mistake I've ever made in my entire life.
To go further into debt, study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist. That sounds like a scam.
$90,000, that's how much my tuition is.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a topic suggested by one of you guys in the comments, and that is student loans and debt. So I thought we should do a deep dive on this topic, so we're going to go over a lot of things. Of course, some of the insane loan amounts and debt and the repayment on those loans, along with the increasing cost of tuition every single year, it seems like, and adding on those extra costs, those random fees, and of course the books that I guess aren't even books anymore, they're PDFs a lot of the time. We could even talk about general education classes as a whole and how much they are honestly a scam, and even a little bit of a conspiracy theory I've been cooking up with all of this information that I've been reading and watching online. So we have some clips along with comments from you guys from previous videos. So if you want to be featured on a future video, leave your comments down below. But we're going to start off with some insane tuition that people are paying now. It honestly makes the car payment videos look not that bad.
$90,000, that's how much my tuition is. Mind you, per year. It goes up every year.
Okay, tonight someone commented on one of my videos that Pepperdine costs $80,000 a year. If you follow me, you guys might know I went to Pepperdine and I was like, surely there's no way it was $80,000 a year when I went there. Because there's legit no way. I mean, I didn't pay that. But sure enough, the total with everything included is $85,000 a year.
Damn, Duke said the trends. It's going to raise its tuition by 5% next year. Tuition will now be 63 grand. Room and board will almost be 20 grand, which puts the grand total cost of attendance at 83 grand. Jesus Christ.
So again, I mean, if you want to compare it to all of the videos of the insane debt people are getting in for cars and how dumb that was because, you know, depreciating assets, the paywalls behind certain features on the car, the reliability, but a lot of the prices we were seeing on those crazy cars was the price of 1 year of college. I mean, to get a bachelor's, you need 4, master's 5, I mean, PhD, any of that, even worse, all the medical school stuff we'll see in a little bit. So when we were seeing the dumb payments on people buying like GLEs and all of these expensive SUVs or any of the luxury stuff, imagine having to buy one of those cars every single year to get a piece of paper to be allowed to apply to a job, to be most likely denied, honestly, right now, but legitimately a piece of paper from a university that said that you passed. But the last one I thought was pretty crazy, Duke, because I did not know it was that expensive, around $85,000. And I know for any of these schools, it's not like you could just walk in and they instantly accept you, you know, you give them the money and then it's as easy as that. But for that kind of money, Harvard cost almost $84,000. Princeton is a little bit over 80, and Yale University is $85,000. So if I was going to pay that much money to go to school, I probably want to go to one of these Ivy League schools instead of Duke. Now, again, there's no way that I would ever get into any of these colleges, but still, the prices are nuts. Here we have a screenshot of the top 25 college tuitions this year. So if you have gone to any of these colleges, I feel sorry for you. Hopefully you got a grant or some sort of scholarship or something, because this is just the tuition. This is not room and board and any of those BS fees and of course the textbooks and all of that. So even number one at $71,000, you're probably looking at least $90,000, if not more. And then another screenshot of the differences between in-state and out-of-state. Now, 2 of these I thought were very interesting. The first one is UNC in-state is only $9,000, but out-of-state is almost $50,000. Now, you've probably seen me wearing a UNC hat. I live pretty close to the university, and I didn't know it was 5 times more to go to that college just because you were out-of-state. And the one right under it is actually where I was born, Rutgers University, in-state $13,000 and out-of-state $32,000. Now, I was a community college dropout, so there's no way I was actually going to make it to that college, but at least where I lived in New Jersey, that's where a good amount of people in my high school went. So we could look up a little bit more of these stats, but here you could look, it actually says $17,000 per year for tuition and fees. So that $13,000 jumps up to $17,000 because of fees, just whatever random miscellaneous crap that they could bill you for. And then $33,000 a year with room and board. This is based on a 4% increase on tuition and fees, which is lower than the 6% 6% increase seen in 2023. So in 2 years, it's gone up 10%. Again, for somebody who is a New Jersey resident. And for the out-of-state resident, $36,000 with almost $15,000 room and board. So you're talking $50,000 a year to go to Rutgers University. And I know it's not like it's a terrible school, but it's nothing insane. But the differences between in-state and out-of-state is just crazy in some schools.
What's the worst episode that you've done where you look back and this person's in the worst financial position?
There was someone with $250,000 in private student loan debts. They started at like $150,000. In only a few years,
Wow.
they went to $250,000. They're going to be $1 million before she knows it. So,
Who gives these loans?
as an impressionable teenager getting out of high school, her dad was like, sign the loan, I'll pay for it. Her dad's ghosted her and has
No.
become complete tear in the relationship.
Did he
Talked.
ghost because of the loan?
She wanted to go to an in-state school in
Gosh.
California that was public and save a lot of money. He was like, go to Baylor. That's where I want you to go. I will pay. You can see in her finances that she's given up.
What would you
Yeah.
recommend for somebody like her?
Recommend-
Bankruptcy?
You can't discharge
Student
student
loans.
loans in bankruptcy. That's why they're so terrible, because they allow an 18-year-old kid to take on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, regardless of what they want to study. And there's no recourse. You can't discharge that in bankruptcy because you're getting an education. The education stays with you. So you just get screwed.
So honestly, that's why I think this is probably the most dangerous debt you could be in, comparing it to any of my videos talking about people with credit card debt or the car payment debt, anything else, because for better or for worse, if you really wanted to, you could go bankrupt. And yes, you'd lose the car, you'd get repoed. Of course, it'd be very difficult for you for any lines of credit for several years after bankruptcy, but it does eventually get wiped clean. And if you truly change your ways and don't just go right back into credit card debt, you'll eventually be fine. But for student debt, that's not the case. There's no way you could dodge this. This debt will be with you until you die if you don't pay for it. So comparing it to all the debt of even like a 17 or 18-year-old kid getting like a car that's way too expensive just because he wants to show off, paying $1,000, $2,000 a month for this car, maybe being able to afford it or eventually getting repoed. Imagine having to buy that car that he got every single year to get an education. And then there's no way to dodge that. If he realizes, hey, I'm completely screwed right now, I'm going to go bankrupt, that won't solve any of his issues with student debt. And I mean, it could get exponentially worse. We saw like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, and then even the $90,000 for, I think it was USC, the $250,000 in debt that Caleb saw, and then we have here a dentist. Realizing I have 84 days left until I have to make my first payment on my $500,000 plus student debt loan, because once you get into any of the medical field stuff, it is such insane debt because, of course, whenever you think of dentist or doctor and, you know, they're making $250,000 a year, but not immediately. That $500,000, even if they're making a ton of money, will take a very long time to pay back. Because what I think a lot of people fail to realize is the interest rates on all of these loans. Because, you know, virtually nobody could afford actually just straight up going to college other than getting like full ride scholarships for something or grants. You know, most people actually have to take out these loans, and you could see the damage that it does long term for people, especially when they don't realize how much money they're actually going to have to pay back.
This is a quick PSA to anyone thinking about going to a big university or college for the experience. I originally got approved for $19,300 to pay for my college courses. This was only for 1 year, 2 semesters. To date, I've paid $19,900 towards that loan and still owe $14,700. Do with this information what you want.
Okay, so first off right away, I don't know why there was like a robot voice over her voice, but you got the gist of the video. So at least in comparison to what we're going to see and what we've already seen, the $20,000 a semester is actually not that bad, but she's already paid $20,000 back and still $15,000 to go. She's almost doubling the amount that she took out for a loan, and her interest rate is about 11%. And what I think a lot of people would believe, especially because the lack of finances, because you're a 17-year-old, you're an 18-year-old in high school, maybe you had a couple personal finance classes, but there's no real life experience with that. You maybe have one credit card that you're an authorized user under your parents, so you could start building up your credit score earlier, but overall, you don't know a whole bunch about finances. So let's just say she was taking out that loan for $20,000 and had an interest rate of 11%. I think a lot of people would believe that you would be paying back the loan at about a little bit over $22,000, because 11% of the $20,000 taken out, that's how much you're paying back. And that is not the case. You could clearly see she's paying almost double back. And we could see somebody in an even worse situation.
I just checked my student loans because I needed to get the information to someone. And what the fuck? I started with $80,000. I have been paying for 10 years. Last year, I paid $6,000 lump sum because that's really the only way to get it low. That took it down to $76,000 after I'd been paying for 9 years. The grand total is I have paid $120,000 and I still owe $76,000. How the f*** is this possible?
So this woman has basically paid $120,000 in interest over a decade. And this is apparently what everybody's supposed to do. Now, I know it is very different than a car payment, and we're comparing them a lot, but that is one of the big ones. That's a purchase that you could spend $80,000, $90,000 on some really big SUV or truck now, especially at a pretty young age, and get yourself into heavy debt. But imagine saying that you were paying off that car for a decade and you still have the entire MSRP of the car originally to still pay off after 10 years. That's what's happening on her student debts right now.
Taking out student loans was the single-handedly worst mistake I've ever made in my entire life. At this point, a college education is pointless. It was pointless. There's no hope. I've been paying on my student loans for more than 13 years now, and I've more than paid back the amount that I took out, and then some because of interest. And there's all this misinformation and false hope around forgiveness and qualifying payments and I checked the boxes for 90% of the qualifying factors, but I'm gonna have to pay on my loans for another 5 years minimum, and that's if there's even any type of program around that time for forgiveness before I can even qualify, even though I meet the qualifications now. But because I don't check that one last box, there's nothing that can be done. Nothing has made me feel more hopeless and just helpless and just at full defeat than these student loans.
Okay, I should probably also say that I'm not somebody who knew this at a young age. When I was going to community college, I basically got lucky being a bad student and eventually dropping out, but I've already talked about it. Even at community college, because I did go out of my county to go to the community college that I chose, it was still $6,000 a semester. So by the time I dropped out and realized that this was not going to work, I'm not a good student, I'm not going to even get an associate's, I should just call it quits and figure something else out, I was still in $20,000 worth of debt, and I'm lucky enough to be able to pay that off doing something that wasn't related to any sort of schooling at all. But I think a lot of people actually believed that their tuition was just going to be forgiven. I didn't believe that for a second. That's why I just paid it off myself. And in total, right now, Americans owe $1.74 trillion in student loan debt. The Biden administration has repeatedly attempted to forgive student loan debt, but a federal appeals court on August of 2024 extended an order blocking it from moving ahead. And honestly, it's just not going to happen. I know that we had several years worth of delayed payments because of COVID, so there was a long time where we didn't have to pay any of it back. And then we were also hearing the stuff where it was going to be forgiven. And I think very, very few people had some of their loans forgiven, virtually nobody. But I do think a lot of people did believe that their tuition was just going to be forgiven and they'd be completely fine. And that's not happening now. And you could see with the interest rates and how long people are paying. I mean, that woman's going to be paying for almost 20 years of her life. The previous clip, the woman lost $120,000 from interest. In 2024, the average student loan debt debt, federal student loan debt, was almost $38,000 and a little bit over $40,000 in private student loan debt. Here you could see this graph just over the past 10 years, by the way. This is 2014 to 2024 and how much it has jumped. Total loans, a little bit over $40,000 to almost $60,000. And if you want to get anything over a bachelor's degree, the master's stuff, the doctorate stuff, it's obviously going to be more expensive, but it's just even worse now. $71,000 in debt if you attended a public institution, a little bit over $63,000 for a private nonprofit, and almost $93,000 for a private for-profit institution for a master's. Of course, the doctorate stuff gets crazy, but you still got to see it. Average debt for PhD, $128,000. Same thing for a doctorate in education, almost $130,000. Doctorate in health and sciences, almost $250,000, $241,000. If you went to a public institution, it's a little bit under $200,000. So yeah, saving a good amount of money, but still $200,000. If you got a PhD in a private nonprofit, almost $260,000. And then in a private for-profit institution, over $200,000. So when I saw this graph, I started to do some digging because I was thinking over a couple things, because this one's pretty far in the past. We go between 1963 and 2021. The cost of room and board almost doubled. It increased 86%, and during that time, tuition more than tripled in the same time period. And just in the past 20 years then, 2000 to 2021, board and room increased 44%, so almost 50% there, and tuition 65%. Now you can see the graph, 1960s, 1970s, and even 1980s, it's a little stagnant, goes up a little bit, goes down, but it's basically kind of the same, right? And as soon as you start seeing the 80s, it just keeps going up and up and up and up until today. So what I started to think, because all the way back then, it was very prestigious to go to college, you know, right? A vast majority of people didn't go to college. It was a huge opportunity. Mainly pretty wealthy people ended up going and getting degrees. And honestly, most of the time, it was white males. But when you start looking stuff up on Google and you start doing some research, I typed in the question, when did women start going to college? Since the late 70s and early 80s, women have surpassed men in the number of bachelor's degrees. Now, it's not like no women went before 1970s, but that's kind of when it became a little bit normal. Kind of picked up steam in a lot more people. Around that time in the graph, when you see it's start going up a little bit, and you could actually see the exact same thing with minorities. When it became more common for everybody to go to college now, it was all for equality, right? And everybody deserved to get a higher education, which I don't disagree, but at the same time where it began to become normal, the prices of college overall just started to skyrocket. Because back when it was stagnating and, you know, the prices were basically the same for a while, if primarily just white men were going to college, there's going to be a cap in the demand. That's just how it is. But if you open it up to women, you could basically double the amount of people who could go, and then add on to that even more with minorities. So you have every race and gender going, and you could start making a lot more money. So when people started going to college more and more, because everybody said that you were going to make so much more money because you got a degree, at the same time, the cost to go to college just kept rising. But still, more and more people kept going to college, kept getting degrees, and we're at a point now where you could see several of my videos talking about the job market. A bachelor's degree seems like it's supposed to be the bare minimum. It feels like every person on the planet has a degree, and when everybody has that special degree that all the way back in the 50s and 60s was very prestigious because virtually nobody went to college, so if you actually had a degree, it was pretty valuable. When everybody has one, it's not valuable anymore. So kind of seems like it was a little bit of a conspiracy to make a lot more money for these universities to open it up to everybody instead of it actually being equality. Now, I know that's probably a pretty controversial take. I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, but if you look at colleges now and the amount of merchandising and all the sporting events, I mean, some of them look better than NFL stadiums, and how much money these schools make, it seems like it started to become a business a lot more than actually centered around higher education during the same time where it was supposed to be for equality and everybody could go get an education. And I'm definitely not saying that women shouldn't go to school or, you know, it only should be for like white guys or whatever, but seems like it was a little bit more of a business opportunity instead of it actually being for equal rights. I don't know, that's just me. We have a comment from one of you guys. College degrees are basically worthless now since everybody has one, and that's what I just said. I mean, because I'm not even talking about any one of the degrees that are the very odd, you know, like the meme gender studies. Like if you have any of those, you already dug yourself a hole and you're in way worse of a situation. But we've seen clips of people getting like CS degrees, business degrees, and because that was the new fad along with all the tech jobs and being able to work for the Microsoft and Facebook type of companies, there was a whole generation of people that went for those jobs just to be able to make a ton of money. But because there was so much supply that flooded the market over a short period of time, the demand from the employers dropped. So you would either have to be the absolute best candidate in the entire world. I mean, valedictorian at Ivy League schools is crazy qualifications, right? Or they start lowballing you so they could see if they could get the lowest salary for the most amount of work and who's willing to actually do it. Again, for a job that's supposed to be a legitimately good job. Again, not just some random degree with no actual good job in sight. And because of that, I've had videos talking about how many people have been complaining about the job market. You know, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They went to school. They got told by their teachers and counselors and parents that they had to go to school. So they did, and they got themselves into massive amount of debt, so much more than they actually initially thought, because a lot of people don't have too much financial knowledge at 18 years old. They get a degree that's supposed to be good or reliable, but when everybody else on the face of the planet also gets that degree and goes for the exact same jobs that you're going for, and they have hundreds and thousands of applications for one single position, what's the odds of you actually getting it? So we have a whole bunch of people that are done with the 9-to-5 because of that. I've made dedicated videos for that alone, and we do have some articles on a bit of the positive side. Teens are losing faith in college, giving rise to interest in the skilled trades. Concern over rising college costs and student loan debt are causing some high schoolers to choose more career-connected pathways over a 4-year degree. Now, I think that might be one of the positives that come through TikTok with the very many negatives, all right? I'm not making it like TikTok's the best thing on the earth, but with so many younger people just sitting on it and watching these videos all day, if you start catching the people who are the 22, 24, 25, and they got out of college and did get a degree and did not get a job because of that degree, and they're complaining and them showing the debt and how much trouble they're actually in, these 14 to 17-year-old kids start seeing that, and why would they want to be a part of it? They don't want to do that. So we start seeing a little bit more demand with the trades, increasing opportunities in the skilled trades with a secure job track and high earning potential are helping some transform Gen Z into the so-called tool belt generation. I swear, every one of these articles have to be cringe for some reason. 4 years after COVID pandemic began, there are more than 900,000 fewer undergraduates enrolled in college, so almost 1 million less. We have more articles. Ohio universities see tuition spike, surprise. Enrollment declined because of it. Ohio public universities have seen a decrease in almost 50,000 from 2020 to 2023. And overall, I think one of the huge scams for any college or university, Ivy League, it doesn't matter what level of college you're going to, still demands no matter what type of degree you're getting, no matter how valuable or invaluable it'll end up being, everybody initially has to take a bunch of gen ed classes.
Why do you think college is a scam?
Half of this audience, if you get a job, will get a job that doesn't require a college degree. 41% of kids that enter college will not graduate. And the vast majority of kids, 60 to 70% that go to college, I believe study things that are completely worthless, meaningless, and don't enrich society at all.
Is that the fault of the student or the college?
Let's talk about the institution itself. So everyone in the audience here, how many of you have had to take classes that are a waste of time, that you wish you didn't have to take, that are a waste of money, and that every single hand goes up? Look around, look around, look around, no, look around. They're scamming every kid in this audience. They are forcing them to take classes that make them poorer, that take up their time in order to get the credential. That is an institutional scam. And by the way, every other part of life is all about your own customization. Your Netflix account, how you get your burrito bowl, from how you dress, your Amazon cart is you are in charge. But you come to college and they say you must go take these 3, 4, 5 classes that are very expensive, especially for you out-of-state students, to go further into debt, study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist. That sounds like a scam.
So, I mean, again, I can't give you the absolute best of my personal experience because my experience in college was pretty limited. But at one point, I was taking a drawing class for one of my degrees. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't draw to save my life, but any of those dumb gen ed classes, I mean, I had a business 101, I remember. That's basically what the entirety of your education career was since you started kindergarten all the way up to high school. That is what a majority of it is. It's just gen ed, the amount of language arts and any of the math or sciences, social studies, like any of the stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with what you're actually going to do in life. That's what gen ed is. So why would you have to go to a college and pay for those exact same gen ed crap that you've been doing in high school the past 4 years before that? It's just a way to be able to milk more money out of you per credit or per class and per semester and fill up your schedule and make you actually stay even longer. 4 years, I mean, if you're failing any of your classes or you don't take as many as you should, then it could be 5 years just for a 4-year degree, and then it starts snowballing, and they could just make more and more money off of you.
Unpopular opinion, but I feel like first gen and low income students need to pick a major that makes sense. I understand this whole following your passion thing, and I think it's important to find something you care about, but if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. Like for me, if I picked my passion, I'd probably be a teacher, I'd probably be somewhere in education, counselor or something, but that doesn't make money. So with my major, business analytics, because a corporate baddie makes money. Plus, I can always charge for starting my own business one day. I don't know, maybe I just am too money oriented, but I genuinely feel like if you don't come from a family that has like generational money, it has to start somewhere and you get to be the one to do it.
So I do agree with this woman. However, it is a double-edged sword. I definitely 100% agree with the getting a degree that will make you a good amount of money, especially if your passion's something wild, because getting some art degree or film degree will just lead you to absolutely nowhere. Believe me, at one point before I finally called it quits, I ended up changing to a photography major because where I was in community college, they didn't have a film major, and I honestly just really liked making YouTube videos. So for some reason, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just make movies, even though that was a lost cause. I was basically just a YouTuber. But if you know anything about a career in film, there is no cinematographer on the planet who has strictly gotten a job because they have a degree in film. It's having a portfolio, I mean, even connections, networking, especially in LA. So those types of passions and getting that degree is just throwing money into a fire. But on the other side of that, so many people have turned to strictly getting degrees just because it's some sort of market that you can make a decent amount of money in, and that just increases the competition, which we've seen in the job market over the past couple years. Some of these industries have definitely gotten a lot more difficult to be able to make a lot of money. The first one that comes to mind is, of course, the tech. So you do still have to be very careful in what you pick if you're specifically going into a major to be able to make a decent salary. We have a comment that's actually from one of these TikToks of people lecturing us for having crazy student loans are the same people who taught us 20 years ago that we'd be nothing without a college degree. So in the same way that I don't agree with some of the people who get degrees on stuff that just doesn't matter at all, if you truly had a passion for it or wanted the knowledge, you could probably find it online. You didn't need to spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition fees to get that degree, but a lot of people will just follow the rules in their entire educational careers, and because so many people will just hammer in their head that they need to go to college to get some sort of degree to be successful, they'll just do that and then realize that they're in a whole bunch of debt with no job at the end. But we're going to end off this video with a pretty positive bit of advice from someone.
These are 3 choices I made in my early life that changed my finances forever as a 22-year-old living in the Bay Area. The first thing is I paid very little in school tuition. I initially enrolled at a university in Seattle with a $37,000 tuition, but decided last minute to attend a local community college instead. This one decision saved me over $70,000 in tuition over 2 years. The next thing I did was I stayed at home after graduating college. I could have moved out to an apartment and lived on my own, but as you may know, Bay Area renting prices are absolutely absurd. Choosing to live with my family has and is still saving me thousands of dollars each month. Now lastly, I chose a high-paying major. I got very lucky with this, and I ended up choosing to major in computer science without even doing much research on it beforehand. Computer science is known to be one of the highest paying majors offered at a university when it comes to post-grad salaries. I currently make 6 figures as a software engineer with room for advancement, and I'm very lucky and blessed to say that.
And I think a lot of people got themselves into heavy debt going into these massive universities. To get at least some sort of a solid degree was a lot of the experience of it, you know, of course, living in dorms with your friends, the partying lifestyle, I mean, going to like sporting events and being able to hang out and basically being able to spread your wings and not live under your parents' roof. But like he said, it went from $37,000 to I think it was like $1,500 for his community college, and that's just an absurd amount of money you could save there. Transfer those credits after 2 years, and when you finally get your 4-year degree, there won't be anything different with your diploma. Nobody will know that you transferred and you were only there for half the time. So I mean, overall, I still don't think college is worth it unless you're in some sort of STEM, I mean law. Of course, the ones that everybody knows that will make you a boatload of money, hopefully. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.